Hi, I'm Phileas Stain and I'm the safari expert, and today I'm talking with expert landscape photographer Mark Dumbleton. Mark, thanks so much for joining me.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, Phileas.
We're right here at Antari's bush camp, and Mark and his family joined me here for 2 nights at Umgedi Hide, which you might be able to see there in the background. And we had the most incredible welcome when Mark arrived 2 days ago. Tell us a little bit what you experienced when you first arrived.
Yeah, I mean, we got here, we pulled up to the carport, and Villiers and Ian welcomed us, and they said, look guys, there's Ellie's literally right here.
The whole breeding herd literally walked down as we walked into the hide.
Yeah, so we didn't even unpack, we literally climbed out the car, climbed straight into the hide. You know, I had my wife and my child with us, and for them to experience elephants that close.
Yeah, it's a next level experience.
I mean, you're sitting basically looking at their feet, you're looking up at them. Incredible,
yeah,
what a great start.
What a nice place to do an interview as well. It's been obviously with all this lockdown, I've done quite a few interviews over Zoom, and it's so wonderful to do it out in the veld. We've been talking about how much we love the sounds of the Franklins, and what might happen is if a herd of elephants come down, we might have to shoot down. But
I'll leave Villiers here and he can talk to you.
For those of you that don't know what Antari's and Umgedi Hide is, go and watch this video that I'll link to, when I actually spend 144 hours in the hide. Go check it out. I won't spoil it for you. For those of you that don't know Mark, Mark is one of South Africa's top landscape photographers. In fact, he's one of the best wildlife photographers in the country as well, in my opinion. And if you haven't seen his work, go and check him out on Instagram. It's at Mark Dumbleton Photo, right?
That's a job.
And he's got about 30,000 followers. And if you scroll through his Instagram, you'll see what I'm talking about. We're talking places like the Blyde River Canyon, Kubu Island in Botswana, Namibia, the Drakensberg. These are the kind of places that Mark goes to take landscape photographs. And the first question that I want to ask you is, what's your favorite destination and why? If you had to choose a place in Southern Africa.
It's an easy one to answer. It's the Drakensberg.
Really?
Yeah. I think why I love the Drakensberg so much is because it's wilderness. There's no people up there. Okay, you get an odd few Basutus walking through with their cattle and whatnot, but there's no people up there. There's no facilities. It's completely wild. You're at the mercy of the weather as well, which I love. But it's packing everything you need to survive on your back. You head up into the mountains, and I mean, I've never seen anywhere as dramatic as the Drakensberg escarpment.
So I suppose much like wildlife photography, it's not only about the photos you get, but the experience that you have getting there.
Absolutely. And I was chatting to my wife the other day about this, and you're actually inside the weather, you're inside the cloud. You know, the storms are happening right.
Well, you must be like 3,000 feet up there when you're.
Yeah, 3,000 meters above sea level.
3,000 meters,
average.
Of course, yes. Yeah. What am I saying? Not even feet, meters. You're some of the highest points in South Africa.
Absolutely, it's so dramatic. My favorite form of photography up there is when the mist is interacting with all the peaks, and get these big thunderstorms pushing through. And
Mark was actually showing me a video clip, sorry for interrupting you, yesterday, of them going up in the hail, climbing up those chain ladders, for those of you that know how to get up to the Tugela Fort. Yeah. I mean, it's literally next level kind of conditions that you walk and hike in to get to the best position.
Yeah. It's serious adventure, and I think that's why I love it. I love Namibia, I love going to the Blyde River Canyon, but I think it's being at the mercy of nature, of the weather. Sometimes we go up there for 2 or 3 days and we stay in the tent the whole time.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it, the shots. And I got an amazing shot last month, or actually in March, of the Tugela Falls in flood. And I've been going 5 years, and I've never seen that before. I've been there so many times, and I think it's just that pursuit of those dramatic conditions that I love so much.
Wow, and you keep going back to the same places.
Pretty much, yeah.
In fact, a lot of the times that I see your photographs, you put them on Facebook and social media, and you talk about workshops. What are these workshops? Is it something that you actually offer to the public?
Yeah, so myself and a friend of mine, Matt Bouch, we take people up onto the Drakensberg, teach landscape photography. We obviously do teach the photography side of things, but it's also taking care of you and the adventure side of things. So it's for people who have a want to be able to visit these areas, but don't necessarily want to go on their own.
It's a little bit intimidating for a guy like me that don't necessarily know what routes to take or what time of the year to go.
And the Drakensberg is a very risky place to go to if you don't know where you're going. I mean, just on this last trip we found people that were lost.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely lost, had no idea where they were. It was completely misted over, and they found us, and we could tell them exactly where they were. So there's a big safety factor involved, and we've got a lot of experience up there.
And obviously, if you're trying to get into these perfect positions, either be it for the sunrise or the sunset, it means a lot of hiking in the dark as well, which then means that extra help as a guide, it's invaluable.
Yeah, it is. We know that area very well, and depending on the weather conditions, and we know roughly where the better shots will be. So
if anybody's interested in these workshops, do they just send you a DM on Instagram, or what's the easiest way to find out about?
Yeah, either send me a DM and I can send you a link, and the link will be to my website. So if you go to markdumbleton.com, under the workshops, all the workshops are listed there.
I'll link all of that in the description below as well, so you guys can check it out. So for these landscape photographers, actually before I asked you for some tips, you and I chatted about it earlier in the Hide. There's the South African Wildlife Photographers Facebook page has got something like 140,000 followers or group members. And I don't even think there's a landscape photographers of South Africa
Not that
group.
I know of.
Why do you think there are so many amateur wildlife photographers and so few South African amateur landscape photographers?
I think that's a very good question. I think it's probably got to do with the physical effort that you need to put in to capture landscapes. You can get in your vehicle and go drive to Kruger with a zoom lens, and you're going to have a good chance of getting some awesome photos. But I think for landscapes, you've got to get into these areas. You've got to hike up the mountain, spend 2 or 3 days in a tent shooting nothing, and that's very difficult to do. A lot of people might necessarily not have the time to do that, but it takes a lot of dedication and a lot of fruitless trips to get some of these shots that we get. So I think it comes down to the physical maybe aspect. And also wildlife. There's so much wildlife in the country. It's a lot easier for people to maybe be more productive with their time.
Probably why you see so many landscape photographers in a place like the United States, where there's all these amazingly beautiful national parks all over, but not necessarily a lot of wildlife. So you see them gravitating more to the landscape side of things.
Those national parks overseas are super accessible. There's a car park right next to these iconic shots, and there's not much wildlife for them to shoot there. So.
You might also find, this is really just something that I thought about right now, is that people tend to feel quite safe in national parks, whereas when you go and do landscape photography, and especially in South Africa, and it's sad to mention it, but there are certain areas that people just feel a little bit unsafe, especially at twilight, that time. You don't necessarily know whether it's safe to go and walk up the Blythe River Canyon or wherever it might be. So perhaps that plays a little bit of a role as well.
Definitely are. You're a lot more safer inside a national park for sure.
Exactly. So we spoke about it a little bit earlier, about tips for let's say landscape photography specifically, or any tips really that you feel for amateur photographers in South Africa, that something simple that will just make your life a lot more enjoyable or a lot easier out in the field.
Yeah, so I've been doing photography for about 15 years, and what I'm about to say I was guilty of. But my first main tip would be choose experience over equipment. Don't go out and buy all the fancy gear, big prime lenses. Rather get a decent kit, but spend the money traveling. If I could have all the money now I've wasted on buying gear, selling gear, and using it on experiences, I would have far more photos of amazing places rather than having had this equipment in my cupboard.
That's a very good point. Very good point. I think we spoke about it a little bit. It kind of comes with you become wise as a photographer over the years.
You do, absolutely.
Where for a short period of time you think, if you're not keeping up with the Joneses equipment wise, you're not a good photographer.
Absolutely.
And that's so wrong. You can have, like you say, just a simple kit lens, or a kit, one of these kits that you buy on special at Macro, and still get amazing photographs if you get yourself to a good place at the right time of the day.
Exactly. I'd rather have shots, of some dramatic weather in the Drakensberg with a kit lens than having a nice 400 2.8 in my cupboard.
Exactly. That you can't even carry up the mountain.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So I think my second tip would be, just shoot what you want to shoot. Don't try emulate anybody. It's good to take inspiration from someone, but don't sit there and be like, I want to be this person. I want to shoot just like that person. I want to go to that person, to the shot that person took. I want to stand at the same spot and try to get the same photo. Rather, shoot for yourself. Shoot what you like to shoot. If you like shooting blades of grass on your lawn in the middle of Joburg, then go for it. You enjoy it more, and I think the enjoyment factor is the biggest part of photography for me. I love to do it. I love to sit in the hard for 2 days, see nothing, but have a fantastic time.
Absolutely.
I think those are the two main principles I've developed for myself over 15 years of doing it.
Yeah.
Obviously I've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and come to those conclusions. But
Yeah.
I think for anyone starting out, I think if you can keep to those principles, you'll get a long way very quickly.
Yeah. Well, so the last thing that I want to ask you, I noticed when I saw you now that you're photographing with full mirrorless kit. And we both, at some stage, we were shooting with very similar kit where we had Nikon D850 DSLRs and big prime lenses. What made you swap over to, or what kit do you have and what made you swap over to?
Okay, so at the moment I shoot with a Nikon Z6, and then I'll have the 200 to 500 with an adapter, and then I've got a 14 to 30 f4 and a 24 to 200 f4 to 6.3.
And those are the mirrorless lenses, the two Z mount small
so
lenses.
Those are the two new lenses that have come out. The reason why I've switched to mirrorless, there's a few reasons. The first reason is, for example, here we had a very skittish civet around, and I was able to shoot silently and not disturb the animal.
Yeah.
I'm not a videographer, but I like to shoot odd video here and then, and a mirrorless camera is a lot better at shooting video, especially with the autofocus, than a DSLR.
Okay.
So that was another reason, but I think the biggest reason is weight and size. Especially hiking up into the Drakensberg with a D850, a 1424, 7200. That stuff is big.
I looked at your kit now, like the old Nikon. You would have shot with a 14 to 24 f2.8.
2.8,
right?
yeah.
That thing's a brick.
It's a kilogram.
And now this little thing that you've got. I mean, your camera's half the size than the D850 was. And your lens is definitely feels like half the size. So you literally, and you got a tiny little tripod. So when you're going up the mountain, your camera kit doesn't, it really doesn't hamper you as much as it used to.
Obviously the thought process behind that is it takes up less space in your bag, but also with too much weight. I found in the beginning days of hiking, I would get to camp and I'd be so tired and I don't feel like taking photos. So then you've carried this equipment up there and you're not even taking photos anyway. So mirrorless has advanced so much. Obviously there's the Sony is quite advanced in the Canon. Nikon's a little bit behind, with the autofocus, but the Z6 for wildlife for me is fine. It's good.
Yeah. So you're happy with what you've been able to get.
So so I'm able now with a smaller kit to get to my location, especially for landscapes, and I'm keen to shoot because I haven't been burdened by the weight of too much equipment. So,
that's brilliant. So Mark, I really appreciate the short little talk. It's just lovely for me to introduce people like yourself to my audience, to the Safari Expert audience. And for guys like you, like I said, go and check out Mark's Instagram. All those other links that I mentioned will be in there as well. And who knows, perhaps I'll do a nice little comparison with mirrorless and DSLR at some stage. If I do, I'll link it up above as well. And then, remember to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comment which one of Mark's photos you like the most. So go on to Instagram, have a look, and let me know which one, try and describe it as much as you can in the comments and let us know whether it's a baobab with a Milky Way behind it. In fact, you'll actually forget to comment because you're going to go down a rabbit hole once you go onto Instagram. And then for those of you that don't know, I also opened up a supporter page. It's called Buy Me a Coffee. Thank Mr. Franklin. It's called Buy Me a Coffee, and it's basically just a way anybody that enjoys the videos, that feels like they want to make a small donation, it helps me to get to more places like this and to upgrade my equipment as well. I'll add that in the description below. Mark, thanks again, and let's hope we get to join up together soon again.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks for watching.
Cheers.